Hello everyone. So this is just a little tutorial about some very basic animation techniques in After Effects CC, and we'll begin by, all I've done so far is simply to open After Effects, and you'll see that there's this little pop-up box that appears and asks you some, as recent projects and stuff because I've already used it. It's a little getting started thing that you can take a look at if you want to, or you can open an existing project, but we're going to make a new composition today, so we're just going to click that. And that will prompt a new pop-up box to appear, composition name, give it a name, give it a sensible name. You know how I am with names. So I'm just going to call this class tutorial, because that's what it is. Whoops, spelled it wrong. Class tutorial. And then it's got a number of properties, really, I suppose. So preset custom, you can make the width. This is the same, the width and the height of the page, the stage, the area, the screen, whatever you want to call it. We can change that to whatever we want. I'm going to change it down to about 1028 or so. Oops, 25. You can do it by hand. So 28. And then it will actually lock the aspect ratio if you check that box. If you don't check that box, you can make it any size you want. So you can make it really tall and thin, blah, 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 normal stuff. Pixel aspect ratio, use it for square pixels. The frame rate is an interesting one to understand. Film goes through, 35mm film runs at 25 frames per second. That means that 25 still frames go through a projector at 25 frames every second. That creates the illusion of movement. Video runs at 25, and lots of stuff at the moment now, HD and stuff, run at 30. So we've got ours set at 29.97. That's fine. If you wanted to make a slow motion movie, you would put more frames. If you want to speed it up, less frames. You don't really need to worry about it. We'll leave the resolution on full, and then the time code starts at 0. That makes sense. And the duration is just how long. You have to set this before you start your project. How long you think it's going to be. So it's set at 30 seconds at the moment. You can come in and change this at any time. But you do need to, you don't do it by default, okay? Just you decide how long you want it to be. And I'm going to leave the background colour white. You can make it anything you want, just so you can see it properly. And then I'll just say OK. And then you'll see that this appears as, this is like the stage area, where it's kind of similar to Flash, I guess, in a way. We've got the tools along here, so the selection tool, hand tool, zoom tool, so I can zoom that in if I want to. Over there, it seems to be, hang on, let me put it on the whole page, that's better. Sorry about my little recording thing, that's just how I'm recording the screen with QuickTime down there. So you can use the hand tool to move it around. There's text tool, drawing tool, box tools, all that stuff, erasers. Some other tools that we're not going to worry about too much. If they're things you don't recognise, for now, just ignore them. This is pretty basic stuff today. So the first thing, oh, all right, forgot to tell you something. This is the project, this is where the project files are kept. That's basically the same kind of thing as in Flash, that we call the library. And then down here, this is the timeline. And After Effects counts in seconds, not frames. So you can say it starts at 0 seconds. And by default, it's showing you all of the 30 seconds worth of frames we've got. Down the bottom here, there's a little zoomy thing, which you can zoom in on. You can see these frames are growing. So we're only showing up to 10 seconds there. So you can really zoom right in, and you might need, that's really useful if you're working on an area, if you're doing an animation where you've got lots of keyframes very close to each other. You might find that tool really, really useful. So this, again, you can do the same thing here. You can make that fit into the screen, so it depends on what your dimensions of your the screen you're working on are. You can also resize these frames to fit how you like to work. It might be that you might need lots and lots, you might want to see lots and lots of layers on the timeline, which will go here, or you really might want to be seeing what you're doing. And so you can move these around, which is, you know, pretty good. Same here. You might not need to see very much of that. Anyway, you can move those around. Then you've got all the properties inspectors that go around here. So the usual stuff that you'd expect. At the moment, it's showing the character one. So the first thing we're going to do a simple animation, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool to do that. You've got a fill color here, something like you'd expect, and a stroke color. What I'm going to do is just draw a blue rectangle, and then I'm going to move it off the stage. So that what we want to do is create something that's going to come in. And you'll see that miraculously, when I drew that, a layer appeared down here. I'm just going to move that out of the way a little bit. I'll be able to stop it, so I'll move it up there. Okay, so we've got, it's called a shape layer, because that's what it is. You can rename that if you want. Call it anything you like. And that's going to be that all the properties for this are underneath it. So there's a little, the problem with, one of the problems I have with After Effects is that the icons tend to be really small because it can do a lot. It's fairly, to learn the basic skills is fairly straightforward, but you can see you've got all these lots and lots and lots and lots of tiniest little icons down here, like these tiny little jobbies down here. And that might be one of the more difficult things to get your head around. So this one is very important to us. It's a little drop-down menu, and it shows us all the properties for the actual rectangle itself. So there's all the stroke properties in there. So if you want to go in and change any of this, it will change it for the whole of the. So let's just change the colour. Let's just make it red for the hell of it. Okay. So that's the stroke. So you can also change the width of the stroke to make it quite thick. If I drag that on the stage now, you see, there you go. You couldn't see it before. Oh, you can change all kinds of stuff, and you can do that at any time, which is really great, because then if you're halfway through something and it's not working, rather than starting the whole thing again, you can just go in and change it there. Okay, so we've got two things. We've got the contents, and we've got transform. And transform is the bit really that we're interested in for our animation at this point anyway. So if you have, there's a little drop down menu on transform, and what we're going to do, I'm going to move that off the stage there a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to change the position of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to move it from here across to here. So the way you do that is by changing the position of it, obviously. So what I'm going to do, right next to where it says position, there's a little tiny stopwatch, if you can see what that is. That is actually a stopwatch. If I turn that on, a little diamond appears. It appears here, and it also appears on the first frame, where actually what happens, I'm going to turn it off again. It's gone away because I haven't done anything to it, it just went away. So you've got to watch out where your playhead is. This is the playhead up here. So if I'd have had it at 6 seconds and then pressed position, it would start the animation from there. So you just need to be careful that you're in the right place before you start animating. So I want to animate it right from the get-go. So I'm going to drag my playhead right back to the first frame, and then I'm going to turn the stopwatch on. And then all you do is you drag it to, let's say you want it to, after 2 seconds, you want it to reach here. I'm going to hit the shift key down to keep that square. You want it to go to there. And now it's as simple as that. So we have already made our first animation. And you'll notice that the playhead, once it gets to the animation, just carries on going right up until 30 seconds. But there's a couple of ways you can play the animation. One is to hit the space bar, which is the easiest one. It's a nice, fast way of doing it, and we'll just worry about that for the time being. So you can also, I'm just going to close that down because I wanted to show you. So if you've got any shape layer, you can imagine that when you get all these drop downs, if you're changing things, you end up with what looks like a huge amount for each layer, and you might have lots and lots of different animations going on. So if you're looking for the position or the scale or the rotation or the opacity is the transparency, you might really end up with loads of layers, and it can get really mind-bogglingly confusing when you're trying to find something. So one thing to know about, which is really useful, is if you've got your layers selected, if you hit P on your keyboard, that'll open the position in the transform. If you hit P again, it closes it. If you hit S, it's the scale. Again, it goes away. T is for opacity. If you think of it like transparency. R is rotation. So you can animate scale, position, rotation, and opacity all on the same object if you want to, we could do that. So what we can do, I'm gonna also, it looks like we've finished our animation, but that can carry on animating. I can just carry on doing that just by dragging it down there, and then so the way that you do it is you move the player head first to the new position of the animation, and then you drag your object to wherever you want it to go. So there we go, it's doing that. So obviously you won't see it when it's off the side of the stage. Once you've done that, you can look at it. So I'm just going to play it. So if we hit so it's going at a reasonable speed. On off the thing. Yeah, it's all right. What I might want to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Oops, she says. I'm going to zoom in on those frames so you can see our keyframes are there. And one of the really neat things you can do is you can move those keyframes around really easily, like that. So I could really speed that up if I wanted to. And if I press the spacebar again, that's very fast. Goes around the corner. There you go. Speeds up again. So you can really add. You can really add timing, and it is really about timing, a lot of this stuff. So there it is down there. Okay, we can also, I'm going to close that one. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to say. Is that you can, I'm going to close all those up for a minute, just to look at the layer itself without all the sub layers. So we know that it's kind of ends. It stops animating at about, let's say 3. But let's say 3 seconds for the sake of argument. So you can, if you want to. Oops, I'm going to zoom that back out again so I get the whole of the animation. I can actually just stop my animation. I mean, stop the thing from appearing at 3 seconds. So when it's done its job, it can go away. And you can drag these around as much as you want. So I can actually drag that to 4 seconds so you don't see it, and then, so the layer, you're not interfering with the animation itself. This is like the top part of the layer. So you can make that, you can move that around as much as wherever you want to, make it as long or as short as you want to as well. Okay, so the next one is, actually, well, I think I'll end this one there, and then we'll do another one. I'll do another one with some more information, because I think that's enough to be getting on with for a moment.